JD Vance is the pick, by the way. But you would have known that if you've been watching me for months, because I've been telling you that it's going to be JD Vance, even though he is a bad pick for VP, by the way. I'm not even joking when I say I think Nikki Haley would have been the best possible pick for Donald Trump. I don't know if anyone else agrees with me on this. She is a psycho, but I think Nikki Haley would have been literally the best possible pick. Centrist moderate appeal, a woman, one of the only people in the Republican Party who was like regularly talking about abortion being like banned at the federal level, being like a genuinely bad idea. She unironically would have been the best possible pick for Donald Trump. I stand on that. He went with JD Vance.
Well, if he's already got it in the bag after getting shot in the ear, I feel like you can do whatever you want.
Well, no, he can't do whatever he wants. He still understands. That's why he's doing this unity call now too. He knows that his chances, regardless of being shot in the ear, are still not exactly great. So, damn, Fox News cooking JD Vance. Yeah, past comments on Trump. Might be America's Hitler. Might be a cynical cultural heroine. Noxious and reprehensible.
Amazing.
These are all the wonderful things that JD Vance said back when it was hot to say anti-Trump things. JD Vance is, I love JD Vance. He's great. He's the worst. He's not one of the worst, but he is like a pretty bad pick. Like he's up there with like Vivek Ramaswamy for ironically identical reasons. Just aside from Vivek being Indian and openly Indian, unlike Nikki Haley, and having a last name like Ramaswamy, which would appear next to Trump, which is completely unacceptable for like all of the biggest evangelical sickos who think he is a demon sent from hell because he's Indian. Isn't his wife Indian? Yeah, that don't matter. That's too many. I don't even know if JD Vance's wife is Indian, but it doesn't matter. Like JD Vance himself is white. Why is Fox going after him? I think this is old. Oh, Trump ticket contenders for vice presidential pick.
Oh my God.
This is before he was picked. They were talking about his weaknesses probably. I have no idea he was so ugly. There's no shot they're winning. No, he's like plump.
Also, everyone else is 80. So like,
yeah, he looks
even if
young.
you're an ugly young guy, you're still good looking.
Yeah, here it is. Here's JD Vance. Like this is gonna play so much against Donald Trump. All of the things that he has said about Donald Trump over and over again are going to be played by not only mainstream media but myself as well. I'll be doing this because I think it's really funny that Donald Trump went with JD Vance, which is like the coward pick in my opinion. The real brave move would have been Doug Burgum. Burgomaniacs. We had to read Hillbilly Elegy in sociology in high school. Weird, my lib teachers and family love this book and gift it to everyone they know for Christmas. Yes, because the reason why they love it is because JD Vance was like super libbed up. JD Vance, if you watched Hillbilly Elegy, if you read Hillbilly Elegy, and I certainly did not. I did not watch, nor did I read, okay? One, because I don't read, but even if I were to read, I would not be reading that bullshit. But I did see the Cliff Notes. And let me tell you, from all I saw in the Cliff Notes, it was a man who was desperate to escape his working class background, a man with like genuine disgust for the working class whites in the Appalachian area who like legitimately hates them, despises them, and thinks of them as heroin addicted freaks. Okay, literally just so much old school Republican Party style elitist discontent for these people. And no, don't say not wrong. Come on, chatters. Jesus Christ. Don't do this liberal elitist bullshit. All right. Those motherfuckers are victims. It doesn't matter if they're hogs sometimes or all the time. They're still victims nonetheless. All right. And if you're from that area, you definitely shouldn't have this level of discontent because you know them as like human beings. You know them as your mother. You know them as your father. You know them as your family members and Isn't he from there? So it's basically just kind of dumb shame he has? Yes. He literally personally looked at the capitalist exploitation of the Appalachian and individualized it as a moral failing and spent his entire life going to Yale, going to Harvard, all this shit, and like presenting himself as like the white working class whisperer who despises them. Okay, who despises the white working class and sees them as like reactionary, drug-addled freaks. I'm gonna have Edinger Mentum on right now. He is going to be talking about JD Vance. He's written extensively on JD Vance among all of the other VP picks. He considers JD Vance to be a F tier pick for Donald Trump. I agree with him. We will talk about why he considers JD Vance to be an F tier pick as soon as I get him on the line. He's dialing in from vacation. What's up, dude?
Yeah. So Trump shows JD Vance. JD Vance got a weird case. He's going Drake mode. Trump has gone Drake mode.
Okay, talk to us. So you wrote, let me see if I can pull up your article right now. You wrote about JD
Yeah.
Vance extensively, as you wrote about all of the other potential VP picks. You and I were in agreement,
Yeah.
even during the debate, that it was most likely going to be JD Vance as his VP pick. But you think this is a bad idea. Why? Let's talk
It's
about it.
awful. Yeah, well, this guy is 39 years old. He's been in the Senate for like a year. So this is like the most unqualified, like on paper, candidate since Dan Quayle. Like even Dan Quayle was at least a second-term senator, I think. Given like Trump's very like obvious brushes with mortality, like he is like a very clear, like this is like a legitimate consideration people have to make. It's not even like with HW where he was like 60 or whatever, and it was kind of like a secondary consideration. Vance has won in one election. He won the primary off of Trump's endorsement after like spending his like whole career talking about how Trump was terrible until he decided that he liked him. That race in 2022 was a near catastrophe for Republicans in Ohio, which this is a state Trump won by 8 points. It was a Republican midterm, 8% inflation, Biden like 40% approval. Vance trailed the Democrat in that race for almost the entire summer and fall. He was losing like by large margins for much of the race. They had to spend tens of millions of dollars to bail him out. It might have cost him the Senate because they had to spend so much money there.
They had to roll out Trump too, right? I mean, they literally had to bring him out there to be like, this is my guy, JD Vance. And ironically enough, when Trump was rolled out there, he didn't even get his name right. Because in the beginning, in the primary in the Ohio race, Donald Trump didn't initially, I think he didn't initially actually say he JD Vance was his guy, because the other person,
Josh Mandel,
Josh Mandel was also Trumpian, right? If I'm remembering it correctly,
he was like ultra Trump guy. He was like kind of infamous on Twitter for a bit, just very on the nose. I think Trump thought it was obsequious, which is his like mindset is very weird. Vance was a huge anti-Trump guy, like in 2016. Like I'm sure you know that, like Bill Kristol level. Like he called Trump Hitler. He said like they'll never forgive the party for this. That Trump was an affront to God. Just like he totally flip flopped after Trump won.
He called him heroin. Maybe he meant he's opium though, like Ken Carson. Like he was saying like Trump is opium.
Yeah, opium of the masses, which might have been a compliment given his work for Purdue Pharma, which creates the actual opium for the masses.
Okay,
we don't
to
know
be
how
fair,
his mind works.
even Hitler might be a compliment when you think about it.
Yeah, true. Yeah. That's maybe Trump realized that he was actually being nice to him the whole time. He was comparing him. Yeah, exactly. But anyways, like so Vance's one election, like the biggest flop election, like of the midterm, arguably. He like gets bailed out by like the Republican Senate committee and all these big donors. They have to spend tens of millions of dollars, like 10-digit ad buys on him, and he only wins by 6, which is 2 points less than what Trump won the state by in 2020. He did substantially worse than Trump in a lot of working class areas. Like he did worse than him across the state, but it was really acute, like in like the coal mining area. So like his supposed appeal with working class people is not real. It's not like an actual thing. Every other Republican in the state like won by like 20 points. I think Mike DeWine won by 25. So there was a significant population of people who were fine voting for like pretty much every other Republican in the state, but not JD Vance. He is uniquely poor electorally. Everything about him shows that his shtick does not work.
Well, it's because he's from the crop of the Blake Masters style candidates that are like very clearly liberals who almost try to cater to the most reactionary weirdos in the Republican base, which aren't, ironically enough, the evangelical Christians, but usually the Republicans in like deep blue districts, like those guys who aren't just like, oh, I'm a Republican because my dad's a Republican, I'm a Christian, whatever, I fear God. But instead the guys who are like, you know, reading Culture of Critique and being like, I'm a Groyper, or or the guys who are like, the guys who are going to like protest serially all around, like going to parent teacher association conferences, even though they don't have children, and they're just like losing their minds talking about how, like QAnon and
Yeah, Moms for Liberty types. He is really indicative of the brand of Republican politics that is even worse than Trump. Like there's kind of like Trump himself is bad. He's always been very unpopular. But like we saw consistently with basically the Peter Thiel candidates like Blake Masters and Vance, those were his two prize recruits. They did hysterically awful. Like there's so many like quotes like about like how focus groups watching like Blake Masters were like crying. Like Vance was basically similar. He's like not charismatic. It's an awful pick. If he wanted to get loyalty, he could have. He had so many different options. I think he's just Trump is a dumb guy, so he's flattered by the intellectualism that Vance like kind of posits to have.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I mean, they're gonna hit Donald Trump on the same issues that like I've already brought up. I brought it up yesterday, even where he went with where it was obviously it was gonna be JD Vance, and like JD Vance did this thing where like the Ben Shapiro type narrative where you know it's Joe Biden's like really violent rhetoric. Words are violence. Joe Biden's really violent rhetoric is the reason why Donald Trump was shot at by a registered Republican 20-year-old.
Yeah, it's the
Like,
worst instincts possible because, like, if you are trying to actually benefit from those kinds of shootings, you do not politicize it. The whole point is that you can look like an apolitical victim. You're not trying to like make this into another example of how much Biden sucks. People already hate Biden. You've won that battle. He's just a debate nerd. He feels like he has to get every point in. There's no like actual sense of like what actually appeals to normal people because he doesn't know what normal people are like. He's from Silicon Valley.
yeah, exactly. He is like white Vivek Ramaswamy in many ways, but like at least unlike Vivek Ramaswamy, he gets to bring like one massive donor potentially, which Trump I think is like desperately looking for. That's probably the reason why he even had Doug Burgum as like a top line contender for the VP selection. Because like there's no reason to ever put Burgum in any of these categories. It's not like I wouldn't say that like North Dakota was in question, right?
No,
like,
not really. No.
Yeah,
Maybe
for JD Vance for JD Vance is like at least he didn't kill his dog, right? And wrote about it. And and I guess like I like that you're also a Burgomaniac. You gave him a B tier here, it says.
Yeah, Burgum was real. Burgum was real as fuck. Yeah.
Ron DeSanctimonious. You say Nikki Slaley is D tier. I disagree with you. I think
this must have been an older one. I published an updated version of it. That I think was this the one that I published like a couple months ago.
I don't know. This is the one I found. I think this is the updated one. Q tier, General Mike Flynn. Wait, where's JD Vance in this?
Oh, I think Vance is in like. Are you looking at the good section?
I'm just scrolling through all of it.
Yeah,
You got Marco
it was like
Rubio.
split up into two articles. I have there's one that's
the bad ones.
the
bad ones.
bad
Okay.
ones. That's where Vance is.
Fuckabee, Tulsi Gabbard. Hell yeah. Christy Nome.
That one looks
here it
really
is.
real.
JD Vance from Ohio.
I got a master's degree talking about how like fake JD Vance's politics are. Like I am committed to like the right-wing flopulism stuff. I do not think that shit is real. That shit is so fake. Faker than a $3 bill. It is the fakest shit ever. It's just a bunch of nerds who can't get over that they're like they've dedicated their lives to this game show host who doesn't give a fuck about them and they're trying to like feel smart about it. It's really sad.
His dream of winning over working class Democrats with an interventionist economic policy will not come true. Voters simply do not view politics along those lines. Insisting on it may make him feel better about himself, but it only confuses people and diminishes appeal. This, along with his slimy Silicon Valley background, is why he was one of the worst performing GOP Senate nominees in 2022. If he did not have the fortune to run in a state as red as Ohio that year, he would be unemployed, which is what happened to Blake Masters. Blake Masters, however, unlike JD Vance, also leaned further into the Groyper stuff. Like he thought he could.
He was the ultimate version of that.
Yeah, he was even worse than JD Vance in that situation. JD Vance is more like an empty slate. He's just you can fill that up with whatever the he thinks or whatever.
He's not outwardly scary. He is the first I think ticket member to have a beard since Thomas Dewey in 1948.
Yeah, he's beard fishing, which is also fun because it's like I don't know how successful that strategy will work. I don't know if Americans trust a candidate with a beard.
No. That there was like a lot of political psychology like done about that. They thought they looked like criminals. They didn't trust them.
Yeah,
but for him, it probably works out better because he used to go clean shaven and he looked like a toad. So poor guy.
Yeah. Also, Trump hates facial hair, so I don't know how that's gonna work. Yeah. Drama. The girlies are gonna be fighting.
God, they made Tim Scott get married over this. It's fucked up.
Yeah. Oh wait, you you were a Tim Scott truther. You were pulling for him.
Yeah.
I was a Burgomaniac.
He would have been okay. I think Tim Scott would have been about like mediocre. People underrate how much of a lunatic he is on like religious issues, but it's like he's kind of fine. Like I mean. People would have made fun of him for like choosing a black guy, but I mean he's like been a senator for a while, so Like, I mean, it would have been, it's just like there were so many normal ass politicians you could have chosen. It's just such an unnecessary risk. It's not like it's not even like, oh, Ohio's not in play. JD Vance is a negative appeal in Ohio. He did so terribly in Ohio. Ohio does not like him. He's like barely even from that state.
Yeah, and everything he's talked about Ohio before he became a senator, like, is his genuine disgust for the entire region. Like,
Yeah,
routinely talking about his legitimate disgust for all of these like gross drug addicts that
yeah. That was back.
don't have that capitalist liberal mindset.
Yeah, that was back when he was trying to be a Paul Ryan guy, but then he changed his mind. He decided he likes them. So good for them.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish it was Carson. Carson would have been such a fun throwback.
So why do you think Trump, let's talk about why you think Trump picked JD Vance regardless. Is it actually
Yeah.
Don Jr. in his ear? Because Donald Trump is a pretty good room reader overall. I thought he would have done better off with like a moderate person, maybe even a woman specifically to like try
Yeah,
to
Stefanik
neutralize
would have
some
been
of this
really
abortion
good.
stuff.
Yeah, Stefanik would have been a really good pick. I was always a little worried about that. I thought that would have just been unambiguously strong for him. I don't really know why. I mean, it's like, oh, she's a flip-flopper also. She used to be a moderate Republican. This guy literally called you Hitler. I think he's just sexist. I think that's what it is. He's just a sexist guy.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It makes sense. So do we think that this like brings back Peter Thiel into the question? Because like one big donor, Mercer, did kind of carry him across the finish line in the primaries and then even
Yeah.
helped him out quite a lot in the general election. So I feel like he's open to that sort of thing. Like he's not
Yeah.
he's not
Thiel, I
anti
think,
one big guy who will back him.
Yeah, Teal, I think, is really kind of strange about this stuff, but he is very close with Vance. Vance is part of that shitty little subculture that he funded. Like Vance went on like the weirdest podcast of all time, like back in the day. Like I think there are so many ways I think you could get him kicked from the ticket if you spin it the right way. Like he was on all these like obscure Reddit like post left shit. It was just like, I mean, Twitter post left stuff. It was just bizarre. I mean, I don't like know to what extent he really needs like the money, because like that like story about him being broke is a little old news, because he made a lot of money off of the conviction. I'm imagining that he made a lot of money off of the shooting too. That was probably went crazy for him. And Biden is having all of his funds frozen by donors who want to kick him out of the race. I assume it won't hurt to have more funding because Biden's kind of had the airways uncontested. But like that, it creates all these problems that you're going to need that money to solve. It's just dumb.
Yeah. Vance, despite JD Vance's like very short political career so far,
Yeah.
he has an unimaginable bounty of attack ads ready to go.
Yeah.
Calling Trump Hitler, suggesting people in violent marriages shouldn't get divorced, being far right on the issue of abortion. I mean,
Yeah.
there are a lot of attack aspects here against JD Vance. So, you know, ultimately it's very I mean, he's also unimaginably uncharismatic. And has genuine disdain for the white working class, despite the fact that he tries to hit the populist narratives. Like he tries to do a Josh Hawley, which is yet another guy. That's another fucking dude that's like so obviously crafted in a laboratory to just present themselves as this like real champion of the white working class. Like Hawley even went to like a picket line, I'm pretty sure, right? Like, I mean,
He was
like
try-harding it like crazy.
And I don't think like Republicans at the end of the day give a shit about that. Like you won. The Red Scare worked. You effectively neutered unions. Ronald Reagan did that big time. Like there's no reason for you to try to go back and be like, no. What we need to do is just like left-wing populism for right-wing Americans.
Yeah, it's Reddit. There's nothing else other to call it than Reddit. They're trying to like it's just kind of a philosophical NUI, and I don't think it's hard to understand it on the left because we don't really like go through this kind of thing. But they have had to spend like nearly a decade of their lives loyal to a man who they know is like legitimately stupid. Like all these people know that Trump is a complete dipshit. They know that he's like a moron, that he only cares about himself, that he doesn't have a real ideology, that he just listens to the last person who talked to him in the room. And it drives them nuts because these people take themselves so seriously. They all want to be William F. Buckley's. They all want to be these philosopher kings. And they just have like nothing to go with this guy. It drives them insane. So they've invented this sort of like, they've done like backwards reasoning to invent this kind of Trumpist ideology out of whole cloth. And I think Trump really thinks that that's cool because it makes him like an interesting figure in a way that he can't really be by himself. And Vance kind of like getting the ascendancy here like shows like the kind of ultimate success of that kind of flattery for him, because like in a way that I think it just like all these people are like they're like blue state liberals. Like Trump used to be a blue state liberal. Vance was never Trump. Like the I mean, I think he kind of is attracted to that sort of insincerity because it reminds him of himself.
Yeah, I think he was ultimately looking for a guy who could get him some money from a state that like could have been a battleground state. I don't think Ohio is anymore, but like,
No, it's not. It's
yeah,
close
Ohio
by.
is the
It's
Florida of the
battleground,
North.
yeah.
But you know, he wanted a guy who is not going to outshine him. He wanted a guy who is never going to be able to replace him, and he wanted a guy who at least had like some level of, I mean, a lot of loyalty to him. And I think because JD Vance is such a rat. He is like so perfect for that role. A man with no like individual opinions, nothing unique about him whatsoever. He's just
this also totally destroys any chance he had at like kind of using the assassination to create an appeal for unity, which I think could have been worth worrying about because Americans are so stupid and sentimental. They might have bought that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Trump himself has personally changed his RNC speech as reported. And is like going for unity, going for like that unity conversation, despite the fact that there are definitely Republicans desperately trying to be more divisive and trying to say something so hilarious almost, because like they have very successfully pointed out how old and feeble and stupid Joe Biden is, a doddering old fool. That narrative is stuck. And now they're turning around and being like, but he's also an evil mastermind who says a lot of violent things. That is the exact opposite of what you were saying that every American now actually recognizes. Right?
It's incoherent. It doesn't stick because the problem is when they try to say people are too mean and rude to Trump, all the stuff that they're saying like was slander is stuff that people believe. This is like their big problem, and I think this was a huge reason why they did poorly in 2022. They are so like stuck up in the afterglow of winning in 2016 and feeling like they were the real voice of the people and like everybody else was a coastal elitist who didn't understand anything. They literally cannot recognize when they could be unpopular. They have to think that everybody is secretly behind them. So they're not capable of recognizing when they're getting bailed out. They're not capable of recognizing that Trump himself is not popular. He just looks strong relative to like this really unpopular president. He looks strong relative to Hillary Clinton. So they need to like kind of go all the way with this because they assume that like not only is it the case that people feel bad for Trump, but they also think that he's totally innocent of all of his charges and is a great man who's trying to save the country. I mean, you may be like half of that may be right, but trying to like changing the conversation from like this kind of tragic and scary thing that happened to him where he did look kind of badass like through parts of it, like to like, oh, this is actually about how Trump is a criminal rapist and like is almost like is halfway in a jail cell. That is the opposite of what you want to do in this circumstance. Like when Reagan was shot, his people didn't talk about how like this is just proof that nobody should ever talk about how like he's crazy again. They never did that. They let it like kind of speak for itself. And these people are incapable of doing that. They blew like the midterm of like a lifetime with 8% inflation, and they could if they can blow this, if they can blow that.
Yeah. We'll see what happens, but thank you, Edgar Mentum, for taking some time out from your vacation to come on and talk about your favorite candidate, JD Vance, Donald Trump's current VP
he got a
pick.
weird case while he's still around. We're gonna Eagleton him. I know that the head developer of TNO and I we got like the receipts. We're gonna take them out.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, have a good one. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah. Bye, Hasana.
Edgar Mentum, everybody. You can see his Substack where he writes about the American elections quite frequently. Oh, this was a wonderful ad from JD Vance, by the way. Let's watch this real quick.
Are you a racist? Do you hate Mexicans? The media calls us racist for wanting to build Trump's wall. They censor us, but it doesn't change the truth. Joe Biden's open border is killing Ohioans, with more illegal drugs and more Democrat voters pouring into this country. This issue is personal. I nearly lost my mother to the poison coming across our border.
How can you hate this guy? Wow, what a good ad.
Are you a racist? Do you hate Mexicans?
Like, that's insane, brother. Who the
from the other room?
who the thought this was a good idea, bro? Like, that's great. Phenomenal political instincts from this man, okay?